Hello, sports fans. It's me, Sportsman Z, and today we have the fifth and deciding game of the 1979 ALCS between the California Angels and the Baltimore Orioles. Pitching today for each team will be actually a new pitcher, someone who has not appeared in the postseason yet. For the Angels, that will be Frank Tanana. And there is Frank Tanana's card, Strat-O-Matic card, the actual card from 1979. And again, these are the original 1979 cards, which were the good card stock, which I really love playing with. And then there is Steve Stone's card, and Steve Stone is making his first appearance of the series. And that's how his card looks. So, without further ado, let's just get right into this, because the winner of this game will be playing the Cincinnati Reds in the 1979 Alternate World Series, as played by yours truly, Sportsman Z. The lineup for the Angels is going to be a little different because there was an injury, if you'll recall, in Game 4 to Rod Carew of the Angels, and he is out for the rest of the series. And if the Angels advance, he will miss the first game of the World Series. So Willie Mays Aikens is in his place playing at first base, and that kind of reshuffled the lineup a little bit because Carew was the leadoff man. So leading off right now for the Angels will be Carney Lansford. And he gets a 5'11 on Stone, which is a catcher's card X. And the catcher is Dempsey, and he's a 2. And that's a 10 and a 2 at catcher. And that is an 10 and 2 is an out on dribbler. So he gets out 1 to 3. That brings up Brian Downing, and that's a 1-6, which is a ground ball shortstop, 6 to 3. And this kind of moved everybody up one, and so who knows? Maybe that'll help the Angels and spearhead their offense, which hasn't really been that great this series. Even though in 1979 they were the highest scoring team in the league. Willie Mays Aikens up, and he gets a 3-8, and that's a strikeout. So Steve Stone strikes him out. And of course, this is a game 5, so this is all hands on deck. The pitchers get in trouble. They'll probably have short leashes. Al Bumbry comes up. He gets a 5-5, which is a triple 1 to 4 or a double. Speaking of short leashes, and he gets a triple. Al Bumbry, who's had a terrible series so far, leads off with a triple. And a hit allowed by Tanana. And there's a guy 90 feet away. Now, this is the first inning, so they're not going to bring the infield in yet. And Singleton is up. He gets a 4-4, which is a fly ball center field B. That does score the run. So he gets a sac fly. Run scored by Bumbry, and the RBI for Singleton. And that brings up Eddie Murray with 1 out and nobody on. He gets a 5-5, which is a triple 1 to 4 or a double. And that's a double. So the Orioles come out and they start really just hammering on Tanana. And Gary Renicke's up. He gets a 1-9, which is a double 1 to 10 single double asterisk. That's going to be a single that drives on a run. So he gets an RBI and a run score for Murray. And that's another hit and 2 earned runs. And then, is it Renicke or May? May is up. May gets a 5-8, and that is a strikeout. Tanana with a strikeout. First of the game, and that brings up Doug DeCinces, and he gets a 6-11, and that's a right field X. The right fielder is a 2. That's a 16, probably an out, and it is. So DeCinces flies out to the right fielder, but the Orioles score 2 to take the 2-0 lead. And Don Baylor steps in and he gets a 3-9, which is an out. He flies out to left field. So F7, 1 away. Bobby Grich gets a 4-4, which is a pop out to first base, pop out to 3, and that brings up Dan Ford, and he gets a 2-6, and that's a ground ball third base A. So 5-3, and California gets nothing in the second. And here comes Baltimore, who scored 2 in the first off Tanana. And Rich Dower steps in, and he gets a 2-7, which is a ground ball third base A. So 5-3, 1 away. Rick Dempsey gets a 2-3, which is a fly ball left field B. And that brings up Mark Belanger. And he gets a 1-12, which is a fly ball left field B. So Tanana settles down a little bit, which they really needed, because the California bullpen is really not that good, and going to any of their relievers except Clear, who is the only guy who's appeared so far, would almost be probably worse than leaving Tanana out there. So Rick Miller comes up in the top of the third. He gets a 6-7, which is a walk. So Rick Miller's aboard with a walk to lead off the third. And that's the first base runner allowed by Stone. And Larry Harlow comes up and he gets a 6-6, which is a single 1-6. And that's going to be a line out to third base. Line out to 5. There's 1 away. Jim Anderson's up and he gets a 2-6, which is a strikeout. And that's a second strikeout for Steve Stone, the current White Sox announcer, I might add. And Carney Lansford comes up and he gets a 5-10, which is a ground ball to third. The third baseman for the Orioles is DeCinces, and he's a 2. And that's a 15. I think it's an out, and it is. So Lansford bounces out 5-3. No runs there. And we're back at the top of the order for Baltimore with Bumbry. And you know what happened last time the top of the order started off against Tanana? They really took him to the cleaners. 4-7 is a ground ball second base. The second baseman is a 2. And that's a 19-2 at second. It's an out. So Bumbry leads off the bottom of the third with a 4-3 bounce out, 1 away. Singleton's up. He gets a 4-10. That's a fly ball center, and that's Rick Miller, and he's a 2. And that's a 13-2 is probably an out. And it is. So he flies out to center. And that brings up Eddie Murray. And Eddie Murray gets a 4-7, which is a ground ball second base. And he is a 2, and that's a 14-2 at second. Probably an out, and it is. So he goes out 4-3 as well. And the Orioles get nothing there. And Tanana certainly has settled down a little bit since that rocky first inning. Although that may be all the Orioles need, you never know. Brian Down, especially the way Stone has been pitching. Brian Downing comes up, he gets a 4-9, and he has a pop out to first base, just misses a home run on Stone's card. That brings up Willie Mays Aikens, he gets a 2-8, which is a walk. So Stone actually has a no-hitter going. That's a second base runner, but both on walks. And Don Baylor's up, and he gets a 2-6, which is a walk. So Stone walks back-to-back guys here in the fourth. Gritch comes up and he gets a 5-6, which is a ground ball shortstop, and the shortstop is Belanger. He's a 1. That's a 6. Shortstop 6-1 is probably an out double play, and it is. So there's only a runner at third now, but with 2 outs. And Gritch goes 6-4-3, and that brings up Dan Ford. And Dan Ford gets a 1-8, which is a strikeout. And Stone with the K, and no run scored. The California threatened a little bit there, but they still did not score. So we go to the bottom of the fourth. Renicky leading it off in the bottom of the fourth with a 5-6, and that's going to be a fly ball left field B. Fly 7, 1 away. Lee May gets a 3-2, which is a fly ball right field B. That's 2 away, and that brings up Doug DeCinces, who gets a 3-7, and that's a walk. So DeCinces gets himself on base by working the walk from Tanana. And Rich Dower's up, and he gets a 5-6, which is a fly ball left field B. So no runs come in for the O's there. We go to the top of the fifth. Rick Miller up. He gets a 3-9, which is a walk. So, Rick Miller leading off with a walk against Stone. Again, that's the only type of base runner he's allowed, and he's allowed 4 of them. And now Larry Harlow is up, and he gets a 2-3, which is a ground ball second base double play. So, he bounces out 4-6-3. And then Jim Anderson comes up and he gets a 1-5, which is a ground ball shortstop A. So 6-3 through 5. Gotta tell you, Steve Stone still has a no-hitter going. And if you remember, I did a 1978 playoffs replay where Dennis Leonard actually had a no-hitter. And that was the only no-hitter I've ever had in Strat-O-Matic or any kind of replay game. So let's see if Stone can get me my second one. But Rick Dempsey right now is up, and he's up in the leading off the bottom of the fifth. And he gets a 4-7, which is a ground ball second base X, and that's a 2, and that's a 17, and that is an out. Dempsey bounces out to second, 4-3. Brings up Belanger, 5-9, and that's a strikeout on Tanana's card. So Tanana really has not pitched that poorly. He's only allowed 4 guys on in what now is 4 2/3 innings. And Bumbry's up. He gets 3-8, which is a strikeout. And he struck out 3 guys, and he just had that rocky first. If not for that, we're talking about a different game here. But Carney Lansford comes up. He gets a 2-7, which is a strikeout, to lead off the 6th. 4th strikeout for Stone. Brian Downing gets a 4-5, which is a pop out to short. Pop out to 6, and that's 2 away. And Willie Mays Aikens gets a 3-7, which is a strikeout. And Steve Stone, my friends, still has the no-hitter going. Bottom of the 6th. And we have Ken Singleton up, and he gets a 3-4, which is a home run. Ken Singleton, who had a key home run, if you remember, in Game 4, which gave the O's pretty much the win. It was in the top of the inning, but it pretty much was the nail in the coffin. And he gets another run, and now it's 3-0 Orioles as he leads off with a homer, and Eddie Murray comes up, and he gets a 4, which is a single one of 18. And that's going to be a single. So Murray with a hit. And the Angels are going to look at a relief, at somebody to come in and be a reliever. And they are going to get Dave LaRoche up in the pen, though they really don't want to. Well, they certainly don't want to see him in the game. But we have Renicky up, and he gets a 110, which is a single. So you would think Tanana's time is winding down here with Lee May up, and he gets a 5-7, and that's a single that loads the bases. And the infield is certainly coming in for the Angels, and so is Dave LaRoche. And Tanana goes 5, and he just goes 5 because, right, because there isn't an out yet. So Doug DeCinces up, infield in. And he gets a 5-9 on LaRoche, which is a ground ball second base. The second baseman is a 2. That is a 17. 17-2 is an out, double play, except it isn't because the infield was in. So let me see, infield in. Ground ball X. Out, runner on third holds, other runners advance one base, so I guess they just got the runner at home, I suppose, if the bases are loaded. Let's see, in a bases loaded situation, the runner on third is out. Yeah, that's what happened. So, DeCinces grounds into a fielder's choice, and the runner at home is cut down, and there's one out, and the infield is still in because they cannot afford another run. They simply just can't afford it. And Rich Dower is up, and he gets a 6-6, and that is a triple 1-6 or a double off LaRoche's card, and that's a triple. So really the floodgates have just about opened here. 1, 2, 3, yeah, and so a run by him and 3 RBIs. And what we have now is the infield in with 1 out, and LaRoche gave that hit up, and all of those runs were Tanana's. So 1, 2, 3, yep. And now that runner that's on third is LaRoche's, infield in. 2-7, that's a walk for Dempsey. And that brings up Belanger, and Belanger gets a 2-12, which is a strikeout. Strikeout for LaRoche, and Al Bumbry's up, and that's a 6-10, and that is a walk. So now the bases are loaded as Bumbry walked. And now we come back to the man who led the inning off, Ken Singleton. he gets a 1-3, which is a ground ball, second base A. So 4-3. No. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's yeah, that's only 2 outs, right? No, that's a third out. That is the third out because Belanger struck out and DeCinces hit a fielder's choice. Okay, so yeah, Ken Singleton gets out and 4 runs come in, and the Baltimore Orioles have a 6-0 lead on the Angels. They've really got to get some offense going now. And Don Baylor comes up and he gets a 2-5, which is a single 1. And it isn't. It's a line out to shortstop. He just missed it. Line out to 6, 1 away. Bobby Grich gets a 4-12 on Stone, which is a fly ball right field. The right fielder is a 3. That's Ken Singleton. That's a 10-3 on the outfield. And that's an out. So Bobby Grich with a fly out to 9. And that brings up Dan Ford. And he gets a 5-5, which is a fly ball right field C. And not to get lost in all of this is the fact that Stone still has a no-hitter going. Eddie Murray comes up, and he gets a 2-9, which is a home run 1-12 or a double. And that's going to be a home run. So Eddie Murray hits a home run. He gets another run scored and an RBI, and LaRoche gives up another hit and a run. The first run he's given up, and Gary Renicke's up, and that's a 4-7, which is a double 1-7 or a single. And that's going to be a single. So Renicke gets a hit. LaRoche gives up another hit. And the Angels are going to get action in their bullpen again. And this time it's going to be Don A's is up, warming up. And that brings up Lee May, the DH. He gets a 4-11, which is on Stone, or on LaRoche. A shortstop acts. The shortstop is a 3. That's a 16-3 at short. We'll see what that is. That's an out with no runners. So still a runner at first. It's a fielder's choice. May out on a fielder's choice. Doug DeCinces gets a 1-9, which is a fly ball center field. Fly out to 8 is 2 away. And Rich Dower gets a 5-3, which is a ground ball to second, and he's a 2. And that is a 15, and that's probably an error. It is a 1-base error. So the Orioles, who have had a little bit of trouble scoring in this series, all of a sudden, they're not really having any problems at all. E4. And you have to question the Angels, i.e. my decision not to go to, I guess it would have been Dave Frost if we had gone back to the original Game 2 starter for them. But we didn't do that, and they didn't do that, and so now here's Rick Dempsey, and he gets a 4-2, which is a walk. And so now the bases are loaded, again with Orioles. And, yes, the bases are full, and there is only 1 out. There's only 1 out, right? Fielder's choice. Yeah, there's only 1 out here. So they are going to bring A's into the game. So that means LaRoche only goes 2 1/3. 2 1/3. And that brings in A's. to face Belanger with the infield in. And he gets a 5-6, which is a fly ball right field B. So he knocks in another run. Sac fly. And an RBI. And a run scored by Renicky. And that won't be an earned run because they because there was an error in here that would have made that the final out. And then Al Bumbry's up and he gets a 1-8, which is a single, and loads the bases. See, I really wasn't kidding when I said that this Angels bullpen is a disaster. And Singleton's up and he gets a 6-8, which is a single 1 to 17. And that is going to be a single that drives in a run. He gets an RBI, run scores. And Eddie Murray's up and he gets a 3-2 line out into many outs as possible. Line out to first base. So line out to 4, but 2-run score, and it is 8-0, top of the 8th inning. And I think I might have screwed up that last inning there. I think there might have been 3 outs before I actually had the last out recorded. My bad on that, but it is, I mean, the Orioles are really blowing them out, so it's not as if, you know, the Angels would have come back. Well, maybe. I mean, maybe that'll happen, but we'll see. But anyway, that's human error, and we'll write it off to human error, and we'll keep on moving. Rick Miller comes up, and he gets a 3-8, and that's a walk. So Rick Miller is aboard with a walk, and Steve Stone has still not allowed. Now I do have to pay attention because he still has not allowed a base hit, and we want to make sure that we don't make that mistake. Larry Harlow is up, and he gets a 4-9, which is a pop out to first base, just missed a home run. Pop out to 3. And that brings up Larry Anderson, who gets a 2-8, which is a strikeout. 6th strikeout for Stone. And that is 2 away. And Carney Lansford's up and he gets a 1-10, which is a pop out to short. Pop out to 6. And we are 1 inning away from having my second no-hitter ever in history. And they both came, may come on tape, but I don't want to jinx myself, but I don't really believe in jinxing myself. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And Gary Renicky will come up to lead off the bottom of the 8th for the Orioles. And he gets a 4-3 on A's, which is a ground ball to third base. The third baseman is Carney Lansford, and he's a 2. And that's going to be another unbelievable, a 1-base error. The Angels, who really don't have that bad of a defense, are making errors left and right. E5, and that brings up Lee May, and he gets a 3-11, which is a walk. Oh wait, wrong team. No, all right, there was an E5 here, and then a walk here. And A's walks a man. 2 on, no outs. DeCinces up. He gets a 3-10, which is a walk. This is just crazy. I mean, that mistake that I made last inning is really not going to come back, I don't think, at all. to haunt me or the Angels. They just were, you know, they brought in their torch crew and it all went to hell. So that's a 110, and that's a pop out to third base for Dower. Pop out to 5, 1 away. They're not even going to bother to bring the infield in because they really need the double play. And single 1 to 3 or a line out to third. And that's going to be a line out to third for Dempsey. Line out to 5. And Belanger up, and he gets a 2-4, which is a ground ball, pitcher B. So 1 to 3. No runs come in, and now we're in the top of the 9th. And we have a no-hitter alert. And that's being pitched by Steve Stone. And Brian Downing steps in, and he gets a 2-8, which is a walk. Now, he has allowed a lot of guys on base. That's the 6th guy allowed on base, but it's all on walks. Willie Mays Aikens gets a 1-6. That's a home run 1 to 3 or a fly ball. And that's going to be a fly ball to right field. So that's 1 away. F9. Don Baylor up. He gets a 3-4, which is a ground ball third base A, and that is it. 5-4-3, and unbelievably, the second no-hitter that I've ever had, pitched by Steve Stone, my favorite team's announcer, White Sox announcer right now, but A's came on, let's see, 5, and then 2 and a third, 2/3, 1 2/3. But the loss definitely goes to Tanana. The game was well out of hand, although the relief pitching did not help him any. But that's amazing, folks. I have had my second no-hitter, and it is on tape. Even though I made mistakes for the Orioles, I think back in the 7th or 8th, 7th inning, that really doesn't matter because it's still a no-hitter, and the Orioles ended up scoring so many runs that it didn't matter. So that's your result from Baltimore and Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. And so now the Baltimore Orioles will go on to face the Cincinnati Reds in the 1979 World Series, which I am very much looking forward to. But for right now, it's Sportsman Z, Bob Zolke, signing off.